Hello and welcome to Sync and Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Josie Thorne. I am a red tent women's circle facilitator, a womb healer, and feminine empowerment coach. I have been guiding women to embody their true essence through womb activations and feminine embodiment practices. I started Sync and Flow to help educate and connect women back to the wisdom of their sacred womb space and cyclical nature. I want to help all women reawaken to the true power of the feminine that lives deep within them, so that they may cultivate a relationship to self that is rooted in pure trust, divine love, and a deeply intuitive connection to the body. Thank you for being here and taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoy. Back to another episode of Sync and Flow, the podcast. Today we are talking to a mentor, a colleague, and a friend of mine, Olivia Krouwkam. Let me just introduce Olivia. So she comes from a law background as a attorney, a divorce attorney, and has now used her skills in conscious relating to as a NVC nonviolent communication practitioner, as well as a tantric body worker. And I have had the pleasure of having a few sessions with her, which have been absolutely life-changing and heart expansion and so much freedom and liberation in my body. Olivia, welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here with us today. I would love for you to give a little bit of an intro to yourself. And
I think I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, where I work with the heart, work with the body, work with relationships, sexuality, tantra. But it's funny, it sounds like a lot of things, but it's actually one thing, because it's like your relationship to your body, your relationship to your sexuality, your relationship to relationships, your relationship to and that's essentially the tantric teaching. It's the yoga. It's like, what is your relationship to reality? So it's like the arts of that is like people who are really interested in going deep in the question about what does it mean to be a human in this lifetime. And I started as a lawyer thinking I wanted to be a boss bitch, and then realizing that was nonsense. Trying to work with people and relationships there, and seeing that actually we really needed to include the heart. And that's when I started working with NVC, nonviolent communication. And then I was like, whoa, we actually need to also include the body when we want to work with people. So it's mind, heart, body, to get the full picture of when we work with people and on a spiritual path. I feel like that's how it brought all of that together for me.
Totally. I love how you always speak about like this yoga of relationships, and I would love it if you could kind of give a bit of what your personal definition of that is, because I mean, we know yoga is like this yoking, like this mixture, this culmination of like energy within the self. And I would love for you to speak about, what that means to you, because I always see you speak about it. And I find it a very interesting term, yoga of relationships.
It's very funny because a lot of people that come to the workshops think that they like, should I bring a yoga mat? I'm like, yeah, we are going to move the body, but you're not going to be doing asana. And it's interesting. It's basically where it came from was seeing how potent the work with relationships are, like as a spiritual practice, and how much when we as like two people who are on a spiritual journey come together and commit to each other to say that both of us are really interested in being as free as possible. And we are going to share our truths with each other, even though it's hard to hear. But essentially, the point is for us to be free and not to just fit into the comfortable idea of what a relationship is. We don't want to live here and be comfortable. In reality, we want to expand. So it's a commitment. It's a commitment to expansion. It's a commitment to meeting your truest self and finding people you can practice that with. So that could be anyone. That doesn't just have to be a romantic lover. It can be the community that you live in. It can be your friends. It can be your siblings. It can be your spiritual community. It can be your lovers, if you have multiple lovers. But yeah, it's essentially like we're not, the heart, how you love is a part of your spiritual journey. It's not separate.
Totally.
And it's such a juicy place to see yourself, see your triggers.
Totally. And
And
sometimes a very hard mirror to get back, because a lot of reflection comes up in relationships, and it's not always easy to look at that mirror. And relational tools to go deeper and to be able to confront those shadows, because yeah, like NVC is such a big part of what you do. And unfortunately, we've grown up in a society where we've actually been taught very violent communication, and come from, that background of, like, as a kid, like, you did something wrong, this is your fault. Like, I find we grow up with like a very blameful kind of way of communicating with others, that kind of, puts the responsibility of, like, you must fix me, you must make me comfortable, you make me feel like this. And it's like, it's really a form of giving away your power in relational communication. So I would love for you to jam on some things I just said.
yeah, NVC, I mean, what a potent tool, people, it's interesting, you go to it thinking you're going to just learn how to communicate better. Like, I'm going to communicate better. And then I actually found it was this massive tool for self-exploration and expansion, learning about feelings, learning how to actually feel feelings, and how a lot of us are actually just thinking of feelings, and we actually aren't feeling our feelings. And then it also becoming, this radical tool, as you said, for liberation and responsibility, because it teaches you to, instead of blaming the world and being in really shitty situations, to really go within and find what are your needs. Because this is a big thing. Like, a lot of us haven't been taught to connect to our needs. It's been made selfish or wrong to focus on your needs. But actually, when you know what you want, you actually become a delightful person to be around, because we don't have to fucking guess what's wrong with you or what you want in order to be like a thriving being. You can tell me, and then I can decide if I want to be part of that or not. And
Totally, especially as women, we so often externalizing our needs as well.
Yeah. Or just I've been so in tune with the needs of others. Like, a lot of the time when I work with people, we start to teach NVC, and then I realize, oh shit, we need to just take time to help this person to discover, to connect to what is it that they like, what is it that they don't like, who are they as a person. So you see, you start this journey, it's like, I'm going to learn how to communicate better, and then you go on a process of learning about who you really are, and what you're okay with and you're not okay with. And then, I mean, the biggest part of NVC that I love is that it's called the language of the heart, because it really drops you into your heart instead of, people don't like this. I've also seen this in like the pop psychology on Instagram world. There's a lot of like blaming, like, he's a narcissist, she's a this, she's a that. There's a lot of like blaming the outside world for you, for what's happening in your life. Where NVC is like, no, your inner reality is going to reflect your outer reality. So when you clean that up and you become to know what's happening there, it's, if you have inner harmony, outer harmony will flow.
Totally.
So,
Totally. And it all starts with that self relationship. And like you said, like, knowing your needs it sounds like an actual mental concept, but actually it's an embodied process, an embodied unraveling of like what feels like a full body yes versus what feels like a full body fuck no on one end of the spectrum, and really trying to like navigate it, because a lot of the time there's going to be gray areas, and we need to learn how to, like, there's different kind of thought processes and terms of like human design and like different ways of knowing like who are you and what do you need in order to authentically be able to know your own needs. And for me, like I can be quite impulsive, but something that has been really healing for me is to have that impulse and then sit with it and really like sit with it for a longer period of time and be like, okay, is this really what I want, or is it just stemming from like my natural spontaneous excitement?
And I think what's so potent about this, I think a lot of our pain comes from not getting what we needed as children.
Mm.
And that's not blaming, you know. Of course, society and our parents had their lives. There's no blame on them. It's just acknowledging that perhaps you didn't have the opportunity to have your basic needs fulfilled, and now you believe that that is a reality and that is how love feels. And now you go and you just go and perpetually create that limited idea of how it should be, where it's like, no, I actually needed this, this, and that. And it's only once you've really connected to that and know that I actually wanted that and start to connect to that longing in your body or the feelings in your body that you can now start to create that in your life. It's really potent if you, yeah, I mean, it's way beyond just a communication tool. It's a healing tool. It's an expansion tool. It brings you closer to yourself, to your heart, to your sex, everything.
Yes, let's go there. Let's talk about sex. I would love that. And like, how does this, you know, like knowing your own needs allow you to like really step into your full sexual liberation? Because that is such a huge thing. It's like, just like your partner is not going to be able to read your mind about whether you want, you know, like X or Y for dinner, they're also not going to know like whether you want X or Y in the bedroom. And it's like, it's so, it becomes such a tool for taking back our power, especially as women, to be able to know like, this is what I like in the bedroom, this is what I don't like, this is how hard I like it, this is how soft I like it, you know. And to be able to reclaim that and, you know, have that like throat pussy access and that connection like really established, I think is such a like a divinely liberating process of reclamation and self-actualization.
Yeah. And so yes, obviously, like to learn how to speak your truth is this is part of NVC, and if you can do it in the vulnerable space of, you know, your sexuality or the bedroom, where it is really hard to do it because it's so vulnerable, you know, it's really bearing yourself literally. Um, and if you can go there and in those moments where it's really scary, if you can there risk speaking the truth, you'll be able to do that in life. You know, it's like, and it is like that, you know, we don't get taught these things. We, especially if you were raised in a religious society, it's like sex is made this holy thing. You know it's holy, but you don't know what the fuck's going on there because we're not allowed to talk about it. and then, and then once you're married, now you're all of a sudden allowed to have it, but no one prepared you. No one spoke about like what it means, what pleasure is. Now you're supposed to all of a sudden know everything about it, you know. And then there's so much shame you can't even talk about it because there's no space. And I mean, I also find there's a lot of in the culture right now, there's a lot of people being they are very sexually liberated, you know, on the surface, and there's polyamory and all of that, but actually deep down no one's really connecting to their truth or speaking about what's really happening inside of them. And so yeah, it's, I mean, it's such a part of your liberation, of your empowerment to connect to your sexual truth. Let's call it sexual truth because it's not even about needs always. It's just about what is true for you in a moment.
And opening up to that authentic erotic expression. And sometimes like the most erotic thing you can do is like to feel and to allow those emotions to come to the surface and to have like an ugly crying moment, you know. And sometimes that's beautiful as well, you know. And like I really want to encourage people to not see as like, oh, that's a disruption of the erotic nature of the moment. It's like that is what needed to come to the surface. And I think when we can not criticize ourselves so deeply for feeling, because I think that comes back to that, what you say, we're afraid to feel our feelings because we've been grown up in a society that shames this aspect of our humanity. And when we are not afraid to feel our feelings, it's like we can play with them more easily, and they become more subtle, more fluid, let me say. And it can be like this natural erotic expression of, one minute you're like, really turned on and in the mood, and next minute like these emotions start coming up. And it's just such a beautiful moment when you can allow yourself to drop into that, and instead of saying sorry or like apologizing for what's coming up, like you just go into it. And because I think we think that other people are going to react to us in a certain way, but actually other people take cues on how to react to us based on how we are able to receive ourselves in very vulnerable moments like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you spoke about being able to express whatever emotion comes up. Let's call it in the bedroom so that Instagram doesn't block us. Is because it doesn't always have to be in the bedroom. It can be outside also. But just for the sake, it's like, being able to express emotion and why that is important. It's the same as life. People always ask me, why am I supposed to be able to express anger? What's up with that? Why do I need that emotion? Can't I just see it passing by? And it's like, no, your emotions, and this is where it brings it back to nonviolent communication, are indicators of your needs, your met and unmet needs. So they bring you information. First of all, they're the juice of life. That's how we experience life, is through feeling. We get information, and then we feel amazing, we feel sad, we feel angry, we feel grief. If we didn't feel anything, we'd be like, life would be pretty bad. So boring. It'd be boring. But then also they give us information. So you're angry. Okay, now I know someone crossed my boundary and that I need to do something about it. If I didn't feel anything, it wouldn't put me into action. It wouldn't give me the information. Or if I'm joyous, I'm joyous. Now I know I love this. I'd love more of this, Or so
feelings it's a catalyst.
Feelings tell us about our inner hearts. They tell us about what we need and don't need, and what we like and don't like. And so the more of feelings you can include in your life, and the more range of emotions you can allow yourself to feel, the more in tune you are with what's happening inside of you. You get that? It's like the more information I have. But if I put down anger, I'm not allowed to feel anger, I'm not going to be getting that information that I need to change whatever is in my environment that I don't like. So I'm going to be sitting in an environment that's actually toxic to me, or that actually is just not in alignment with who I am. So the more I can allow certain feelings, the more actually I can create the life that I desire, because it actions with me. So same in the bedroom.
Totally. Can you please speak about this in context to triggers, especially triggers that come up in relationships?
So first of all, I need to clear up what I mean when I say the word trigger, because there's a lot of people using that word, and I'm not saying I'm using the correct word, just to give context of how I work with triggers.
Beautiful.
So the way I work with triggers is that I identify it as they are indicators of when I am having a disproportionate response to reality. Why am I having a disproportionate response? Because there's something that happened in the past that's unfinished. There was an emotion that affected me. My nervous system couldn't handle that amount of emotional information because of whatever reason, it wasn't safe enough. Doesn't matter. There just was no space for that emotion. So it gets stored. It's unfinished. It's an unfinished process. The emotion gets put somewhere. And I think it's so funny when people are like, what happens to suppressed emotions? Like, they don't just vanish into the thin air. I like to use the analogy of like our garbage. We think we throw garbage away. What happens to that garbage? It's still on earth. You know, it just goes somewhere and gets stored on an island, and then we're going to have to deal with it later. It pollutes the sky, and we're in the poison of our own unfinished business. So what happens when you trigger it is it's a beautiful thing, because it's actually your subconscious creating opportunities for you to finish a process, to actually
heal.
to heal, to stop
Yes.
keeping that pent up energy inside of you. But now what happens is, let's say, Josie, we're in a relationship, you say something to me that is scratching on that unfinished business that I have in my body. I have emotional reaction to that. I'm actually reacting to the thing that happened in the past that I never had an opportunity
It's not about me. Yeah.
Then it's not about you. And the problem comes in is, I also see a lot of people, what they try to do now is they try to manage the other person so that they don't you trigger me, when it's actually, no, I'm getting an opportunity to see where I am not free. Because as long as I am suppressing an emotion, as long as I am avoiding to feel something, because maybe it was too big to feel at the time, that stuckness is going to control me. It's going to control my life. So you are giving me an opportunity to let go of something. And this is how we work with it in the yoga of relationships, is we acknowledge to each other that, I have stuff that's unfinished. You have stuff that's unfinished. Because we love each other, in the nature of polarization and relationship dynamics, it's going to come up because our hearts are so open right now. Can we be compassionate to each other, but also very truthful, because your truth might give me an opportunity to work with my trigger and to finish something that's not finished. That makes sense.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think a lot of conflict, like you said, arises when the person that's being triggered is trying to micromanage the other's response to their trigger. And then also at the same time, it's like you can't micromanage someone else and hold space for yourself being triggered at the same time. It's like there's too many things to manage and figure out. And I think a lot of conflict arises because of just the demonization of feeling. And oftentimes our partners are not equipped to hold space for us when we're triggered, and that is just the nature of the lack of emotional education and emotional intelligence of our current society. We're not taught this in school, so I really think that it's it is your responsibility to take charge of your triggers. And then when you're in a more down-regulated nervous system state, because something that I learned through therapy is that after a trigger, your nervous system takes a minimum of 15 minutes to get back to baseline. And I think I'm speaking from personal experience, the amount of times that I've tried to sort out the situation before my body comes back to that baseline, and then that just kind of escalates the dysregulation in me and my partner, and then it just spirals out of control. And so yeah, it's so important to know, the biological fact that after a trigger, you need to wait at least 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, to come back to that baseline, to allow yourself that to allow yourself to reassess the situation and go back to your partner from that state of regulation, so that you can then authentically communicate your needs from regulated states rather than this dysregulated triggered states.
And I find relationships so interesting, because it's almost like the more I'm working with people, the more I seem to see that we can't really put one recipe onto everyone. There's no right and wrong, and it's really about finding what's true to you. Because I'm in a relationship currently, and obviously we're practicing yoga of relationships, where we finding, for me, what's more authentic when I've had a trigger is that I actually need space just to be with myself, and just to come back to myself. And then I need some mending, actually. You know, I need like something to feel like I can come back close to the person.
Yes.
Where maybe the other person is like the separation and the disconnection is feeling so stressful that they need they need to reconnect quickly, you know.
That was
And
me.
so, you know, so we're not making it, no, people need space or people need to reconnect quickly. It's like, no, you get aligned with what do you need, and then you can negotiate around how you can find a middle ground in that, is where I can have space, but also I'm not running away from you.
Totally.
You know, I'm not saying like goodbye, and you getting your connection, or knowing that you're getting it, so you're not feeling all stressed about it. So it's like, this is the thing again. It's like we need to be careful to fall into recipes of relating. Oh, these books say anxious attachers must do this and this and that. I'm not saying those are wrong. Those are beautiful tools, but it's like, it's actually about, in each moment, how embodied can you be with your truth, and then let that direct the next movement. That's where we want to be. I mean, I know that's very hard. Until we get there, we can work out strategies. But if you really with yourself in a moment, in your body, can you be with the trigger and your body and the other person, and you're able to speak your truth, you will be able to figure out what's the next step.
Totally. I was actually just about to ask you about your thoughts on attachment theory and attachment styles, because I feel like it's also like a very hot topic on Insta psychology at the moment. And I think a lot of like the individual needs of the person in those conflicting, triggering situations will depend on, you know, that I'm not going to say yes, attachment style, but also their past, like we said, those stored emotions, those stored triggers, those past childhood traumas. So I would love for you to speak on your opinion on that.
I mean, I can only speak to what I've seen, you know, and what I work with and what I do. And I'm just, I think maybe it's just my nature. I'm more like interested in what's authentic in a moment, because I've seen myself flip. I've been in some relationships, I've been the one to keep the connection. And in some relationships, I flip and I become the one that needs the space, because I do think we go into polarity. So if I just put a style onto that, that wouldn't work. But that being said, I also know a lot of people have learned a lot about themselves through reading about these attachment styles, and they understand where their actions are coming from. And you know, anything that gives you insight and understanding is really beautiful. But so obviously not against. I mean, why would you be against something that's a great tool? As I said, like for me, it's really about not asking about how you can edit your. I mean, I also have this problem, and this is probably going to be controversial. I know a lot of people hate when I say this. I'm going to say
Bring
it
it,
anyway.
bring it.
Like I see a lot of people saying that, you know, you're going to live with your wounds forever, and you just need to learn how to live with them. I don't have that point of view. I think we can heal. I think we can heal, and we can expand, and that's the whole point. Because otherwise, why are we doing this spiritual work? So if you're putting a diagnosis on yourself, you are solidifying a story about you, which perhaps is true in that moment, you know. But if you go into the realm of, I am not my past wounds, they are giving me an opportunity to create a new reality, then I can heal them. And then I can actually change and create something new. But I know this is, I mean, I have this debate a lot. So it's like, I'm also not saying I'm 100% right. It's just it's like, why do we do the work if we don't believe that we can change and heal?
Yeah, totally. I mean, just in witnessing my own personal evolution, it's like, it's crazy how unbothered I am about things today that I used to get like so worked up and dysregulated about, like even just like a year ago or 2 years ago, you know? So, I mean, there's no such thing as fully healed, but it is also like you can learn to release attachment, like you said, to these stories. And I think the labeling, and maybe that's what you're referring to with the attachment styles, is like the labeling can create a comfort in an identity. And that identity can then kind of take preference to what's actually authentically arising in that moment, because we attach so much to that identity. Yeah, yeah, it's super super interesting, and how we can also, like, I saw this quote, and it was like, if you are in conflict, so if you're having a fight with someone, partner, platonic, friend, whatever, and at the end of the fight, you're not being brought closer together, you're fighting wrong, and like, there's like a right way to fight, and then there's like the way to fight that I think comes from this patriarchal dogma of like winner, loser, me over you, like I'm right, you're wrong. And I think that was something that I had to let go of so much, in terms of the way that I approach conflict in relationships. Is that, like, for me as a child, like, there was always like, the parent is right and the child is wrong, and that's just the way it is. And and like, to realize that, like, actually having an argument with someone should bring you closer at the end rather than further away, it was mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beautiful, this is one of the main principles of nonviolent communication, is to try and get you out of the mindset of right and wrong, wrongdoing and right doing and punishment. And it's like, I mean, that in itself is a whole fucking awakening to a new way of thinking. It's like, no, I mean, I don't want you to do this for me because I think it's wrong what you're doing. It's no, because it would meet my need. It will, make my life more wonderful. So are you willing to do that or not? But if I'm framing your behavior and right or wrong, you're going to have no desire to partake in 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 meeting my need, because you're going to be wronged. And unfortunately, this is how we were brought up. It's like, oh, if you behave in school, then you won't get punished. So we do something out of fear, and instead of doing something out of desire and feeling good. And I know this is also something people get really triggered by, because they think the world is gonna be a chaotic society if we don't have this fear mongering to keep us in line. And I'm like, yeah, how did COVID go for you guys? Like, how did all that fear mongering work? But it is, and I mean, it brings me to a topic that I'm really dear about, where I think one of our biggest hurts as humans in relationship is that we think that we are loving someone, but we're actually moving out of fear. We're actually moving from a place of fear, not from a place of love, because we've been taught you have to be like this, you have to do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we're not connecting to what's really true in our hearts. And we wonder, why are we so fucking miserable in our relationships, but we're actually moving, we it can't get to our hearts because we're moving, not from a place of desire, not from a, I don't know if this makes sense. Please tell me if it
No,
doesn't.
definitely it is. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so yeah, to learn how to really connect to the truth of your heart and create relationships from there, instead of what is wrong, what is right to do, is, I mean, it sounds small now, but it's one of the most major things to do in this lifetime. If you can just get that right, I mean, that's like, then we're going in the direction of unconditional love, which I don't know if any, like we're not even allowed to talk about that as humans because we're so far from that. But it's like the practice of, can I practice this heart expansive journey,
Totally,
spiritual
totally.
journey?
And sometimes it's like, this is because of our conditioning, this journey is difficult, and it is deep, and it requires a lot of self-trust and a lot of personal self-development work and nervous system work. I think for me, like, the biggest takeaway from working with you, in partnership and in by myself, is that, like, it's all about, like, what is the state of your nervous system that you're approaching a conversation with. And for me, it's like, I thought I was calm, but actually, like, there was this underlying tone of, like, blame in the way that I was projecting my needs. And I think that is like then we get to like the subtleties of communication, like the very, very subtle things of like the body language, the eye contact, and it's like, actually, if you feel into your body, like you can feel whether your heart is open and relaxed versus like contracted and like, coming, like you said, coming from that fearful place.
I lost you, but I'm back. Yes.
Yeah, coming from that fearful place. And I think that on a very deep level, it comes down to like how much somatic responsibility are you taking for yourself in that moment. And yeah, it's that's why also for me, learning how to hold space has also been such a powerful journey of self-actualization, because you realize that sometimes, and actually this is for majority of times, like sometimes people just need to be heard. They just need the space to vent and to cry and to have that like moment of raw expression. And instead of trying to fix them, instead of trying to help them, instead of trying to save them, you can just hold that like strong masculine pillar of strength and like container. And this actually brings, I was having this conversation with my friend actually the other day about like the roles that we play in relationships. And a role that like even I know that like my brother was also playing out in like his ex relationships, where it's like we want to save people, we want to be the saviors. We want to like, oh, your life is like this, like I can save you, like come into my arms, like and it's like it's taking that sovereignty away from the other person. So I would love you to speak on that and like the different roles that we kind of assume within relationships.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've also seen people save people so that it distracts them from what needs to happen within themselves. It's much easier to save someone else than to save yourself in a moment of in a moment of that. I mean, the fact of the reality is that we can't save anyone.
No.
And I mean, I'm gonna answer this question by not answering your question. Cool, because I have something interesting. It's like, way. I mean, I've even seen like in my work, I think when I started off doing sessions, I think I wanted to save people. Like I thought like, I'm going to heal you guys. And, and I wanted to be the one to heal them. And, doing the work, I realized, well, that's really impossible. It's really not. I mean, it's just not, and it's not even impossible. It's also not something I want to do. It's like, no, you can teach people tools. You can hold their hand on the way. You can be with them there. You can give them a regulated nervous system, to show them like, hey, I'm someone who's gone through this scary emotion, and here I am still, and it's possible, and and it's safe, and all of that, and just give a gentle nudge, but no one can be saved. Like if you want to save someone, like really save yourself. Like the more, please save yourself, because the more, I mean, I always people, I want to save the world, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I'm like, the more open your heart is, the more expanded your nervous system is, the more you can love, the more you are coming from truth. Like you don't even have to be someone who like holds a workshop. Just if you have that in your system, your whole community around you is going to change. It's like a ripple effect. If there's one person holding truth and they vibrate that openness, the other nervous systems have to follow. They have to expand with you. And it's like, I think that's the juiciness of the work. It's like, and now imagine if you create a community where everyone is committing to their liberation and expansion, and everyone is bringing a piece that maybe the other one doesn't have, and now that nervous system is expanding. I didn't even know I wasn't able to feel that emotion, but now this one's doing it. Oh my God. So now I want to expand, and I'm going to teach that one how to do it. And I think I'm also going much more from a space of wanting to be the one that's on top, and I'm going to teach others to how can we as a circle and as a community expand together.
Totally,
Much
that's
more
so
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so much of like the work that I do in my women's circles and the red tents. It's like it's all about that, like there's no hierarchy. We're all here to learn from each other, and there's so much power in being able to acknowledge your own weaknesses from a place of like vulnerability, and then also like not from a place of pride, but from a place of empowerment and self-knowing. Is like, these are my strengths, like how can I relate with you, and how can we balance each other out, because we all have something to learn from each other, and there's no, like we spoke about, there's no right or wrong in relating. It's just about like how can we open our hearts so much deeper and allow the other person to feel safe enough to share their truth. And that truth isn't always going to be, it's not going to always be pretty, you know. Majority of the time it's actually going to be pretty hard to digest and pretty hard to sit with. And yeah, I guess it's really about like how willing are you to meet this person in their truth without making yourself feel ashamed for whatever they're saying, you know. Because that's just feedback. And for me as well, like my personal experience was that like whenever I got feedback from others, I would get really defensive and really like, because deep down I knew what they were saying was true, and deep down I would feel really ashamed for that. And so I think the more we do shadow work with ourselves, the more we can actually begin to be like, okay, like I know that that is one of my weaknesses. Like, how can I learn in this moment and grow in this moment through this person presenting that opportunity for, yeah, the relational dynamic to deepen, the relational dynamic to also become that, yeah, it's almost like a petri dish where it's like there's all this like these bacteria and this growth and this expansion, and it's like how can my my internal makeup gel with your internal makeup, and how can we also meet in the middle, because a lot of the time I think we think it's up to, like we put our power outside of ourselves and we think it's up to the other to reach out or to make that connection. And sometimes you have to, like for me, I've had to just accept that like sometime, actually majority of the time, I'm going to have to be the bigger person, because I've done, and I'm not also trying to like be like, oh, I've done so much healing work, like I'm so evolved, like blah blah blah, but like I have more experience just with this kind of relational work and with myself and with my own shadow work healing journey process. It's like you actually have to step off that hierarchical like nature of looking at things and be like, okay, like I am going to have to be the bigger person here. I am going to be the one to have to open my heart first. I am going to have to be the one to like really just be brave enough to have those hard conversations and like kind of bite the bullet first, if that makes sense.
And also to have the awareness that the people who you create in your life, if I may use these words, are really reflections of what's happening inside of you. So if you're having a lot of complaints about the people around you, you know, you're gonna have to check like why is that your reality? You know, why am I seeking why am I constantly creating people that I have this complaint about or that complaint about, or I mean I went through something where I was like, you know, starting to feel a bit stuck in certain dynamics with certain people, and I realized that the growth was not happening because I was remaining in the hierarchical blame piece, where it actually required of me to go like, no, actually I want to change, shut up, I'm going to speak more truth. And once I did that, my environment could also change and grow. But it's when I try to stick to the roles, I can't be met. because I'm not meeting reality with truth. I'm keeping it in these layers. So it's like the more truthful you're willing to be, the more you can vibrate what's true inside of you, and the more you can create what's real, and the more you will attract and create people that can meet you exactly where you are, and that can also challenge you a little bit.
Totally.
But this is something, and this is the thing. It's like it's choice. It actually also boils down to choice. It's not. I'm not saying this is the right way to relate. I'm not saying this is the best way. I'm saying it's a way in which, if you wanna meet the most of truth of yourself, you're gonna have to create and choose relationships that
choose you back.
Are willing, that choose you back, and that are willing to risk it all for truth. Willing to risk comfort for truth, but then you got to choose those. You got to create them. They're not just going to happen. You have to say, okay, it's the kind of community I want to live in. These are the kind of lovers I want. These are the kind of friendships I want to invest in. It's a choice.
Totally, it is a choice. And even if we're not, it's like we think that like by staying out of the argument or by holding back our truth, we're staying neutral, but you're still making a choice by not making a choice. And I think that was also revolutionary for me, was like, you know, like when I was in my early 20s and I was going through like, you know, getting really upset at like guys who were just treating me and like shit, and like only wanting to get with me because I was hot and pretty and had nice boobs. And I was like, actually wait, it like hit me, and I was like, actually wait, I'm allowing people to treat me like this, and therefore I'm allowing myself to go into those dynamics, you know. And so as soon as I like, you know, made that choice, I was like, actually, you allow people to treat you based on the perceptions and love that you have for yourself, you know. And that was like revolutionary for me, you know. It's like it all starts with yourself. Like, what are you allowing? What are you choosing? And if you're not choosing something, know that you're still choosing something by not making a choice, you know. Just because you haven't made it verbally, on a subconscious level, it's still being made a choice, because you know, everything that you're moving towards is moving away from something else, and vice versa.
And it's like, it's the same thing of like, you know, when you have something with a friend and there's something unspoken and it feels funny and it's like building and it's building, and often we think by not speaking about it, we're avoiding this thing that we're scared of that's going to happen, you know, when we speak about it. But the reality of the fact is, it is happening. You know, just the thing, you are becoming resentful. There is stuff happening between you. Just because you're not saying the actual words doesn't mean it's not happening. It is happening. It's just about like, okay, am I willing to be real about it and actually bring change, or am I okay with festering in it forever? You know, so it's like whenever you worried about having a difficult conversation with someone, just know that the thing that you're scared of happening is actually already happening. It's already there. It's just, do you want to change it or not?
Wow. Yeah, sorry, that really hits home for me. Like, so many internal cogs are just like going. Yeah, wow, thank you for that. That was, really, really, really powerful. Sure. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, and it's like that we actually are much more, you know, people always think of like, when we talk about like the energetics and the subconscious, is like this very woo-woo thing, but actually our bodies are so much more conscious of energetics than we actually give ourselves credit for, you know. And if you're feeling something, the likelihood of someone else feeling it as well, even if it's on a subconscious level, is like majority of the time that's happening too, you know. And so like I also like heard someone say, like, if you like about this whole like energetics of like even attraction, you know, and like if you are like checking someone out, majority of the time they're also checking you out, but it's like you think that you're doing it in this like sneaky way, you know, but like actually it's that very energetic, like quantum subtle reality that starts to get initiated. And we have to actually become aware of these subtle realities and choose to partake in them, or choose to step away and cut that cord and detach from the situation, because otherwise we're going to be ruled by, our subconscious and the festering emotions, like you said, that are there, that we're just not actually speaking about.
Totally. Very true.
Yeah, this feels complete for me. It was a really, really beautiful, potent conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I would love to just give you like a few minutes to speak about your offerings and things that are coming up for you and the in-person work, because damn, did I have the most incredible bodywork sessions of my life with you. And I highly encourage everyone listening and watching to reach out to Olivia, because this witch is magical, y'all.
Oh, thanks, Joyce. That's beautiful to hear. Yeah, in-person work, body work to work with. So, we've been chatting about this work, but the really potent thing is when you can learn how to be with this in the body, and we can, work with nervous system expansion and the pain and how these stuck emotions land in the body. That's the most potent. And this is the work that I'm currently really doing in my yoga of relationships. I do like once a month where people come and we learn about triggers and what shows up in all the delicious work that comes from relationships work, but we come together and we practice it in the body. So it's not just a mind process, and I can just check that on my Instagram. And then, I have such delicious things coming up. I mean, I'm going to be doing a workshop, retreat with Nicolene, a 2-day thing on art and eroticism and expanding like your creative erotic power, because they're so linked, and reigniting the artist inside of you. That's coming up in person. And then I'm doing a wild retreat in Sedgefield. And then the one that I'm really excited about is at the end of the year, I'm doing with Valentina Leo. And this is for everyone over the world, because you've got enough time. We're doing a Red Dakini Tantra training, which is a complete, it's only for advanced practitioners that really are bored of doing the spiritual work on themselves, and they want to enter into a laboratory and go really live as wild women under the stars. And
where is this happening?
This is happening in Bodikaya here, close to Cape Town.
In Cape Town.
Just outside of Cape Town over New Year's Eve for 9 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no clothes, just meet you and reality and nature.
That's for men and women?
Only women. So it's
Okay.
a women's training.
Okay.
So I mean, lots of things coming, but people got to find me. And I know we didn't get to speak about yoni work, but I'm going to be doing some online yoni work if anyone wants to connect.
Yes. Well, that's definitely a chat for another podcast. But thank you so much for your time today and your energy and for sharing your wisdom with us. This work is it's so needed. So thank you for going first, and thank you for being a guiding light of wisdom and inspiration. I really look up to you so much and value you as a person and a friend and a mentor. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Joe. It's lovely to chat to you and to see the beautiful work you're also doing.
Thank you. Thank you. All the love.
Love to you, babe.
Ciao. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode and engage with all the wisdom that was shared. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, as this really helps this wisdom reach new people. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to me via Instagram DM or send me an email. You can follow me on my personal account on Instagram at Josie, Josie _Thorne, THORNE, or you can follow Sync and Flow, my business accounts, at Sync, that's spelled SYNC _in_flow. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or queries you may have. Otherwise, get in contact to book a free discovery call to start your self-healing spiritual journey today. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now, loves.